Welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about the best wide receiver one-hit wonders of all time. And we're going to start with one of the more interesting cases in NFL history, and that's going to be Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor was the #1 quarterback recruit in the 2008 high school class, and he ended up going to Ohio State, where he ended up balling out. If you were growing up around that time, I was in high school in 2008, and Terrell Pryor was massive. Every single year he was in college, he was a stud. The only real issue with Terrell Pryor, even in college, is that he could never really develop as a passer. But he was the ultimate playmaker. He won all sorts of awards in college, but as a result of a sanction for selling memorabilia, he ended up never playing again at Ohio State after the 2010 season. And because of the sanctions, he ended up being in the supplemental draft where he was selected in the 3rd round by the Raiders. And because of the suspension that he was getting in college that he never served, he served that suspension in the NFL. It was 5 games. And his career as a quarterback in the NFL was probably just never going to work out anyways. Like, he had flashes at quarterback in the NFL, but it was pretty apparent he was never going to be an NFL quarterback. But he had the athleticism to make a change to wide receiver, and that's exactly what he did after being cut by the Bengals in 2015. And after announcing that he would be willing to turn into a wide receiver, the Browns went ahead and picked him up. Now, he was on and off the Browns roster throughout 2015 and finished that season with only 1 catch for 42 yards. But in 2016, Pryor was named a starter going into the season. He ended the 2016 season with 77 catches for 1,007 yards and 4 touchdowns on a Browns team that went 1-15. So it's not coming out and having an all-pro type season, but 1,000-yard season for a guy who was supposed to be a quarterback, and basically his first season as a wide receiver. He didn't really get to play the first season he converted. So it was an incredible year in 2016. The rest of his career, he ended up going to Washington after that, signed a contract with them. It just didn't work out. Injuries were basically the story of his career. He was released by Jags on September 3rd, 2019, and never played again in the NFL. Now, it would be interesting. I eventually want to do a video just on Terrell Pryor and everything about his journey, because I think that's an interesting story. You let me know down in the comments if that's something you would like to see. All right, this next receiver we're going to talk about is Steve Smith. No, not Panthers legend Steve Smith. We're talking about Steve Smith from the Giants teams, from the old USC teams that were winning national championships and dominating everybody. And of all the talent on the 2006 USC team, this Steve Smith was selected as the team MVP. He ended up being drafted by New York Giants with the 51st overall pick in the 2007 NFL draft. He only played 5 games during the regular season of his rookie season, but returned from his injury to play in the postseason and played a vital role in beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl that season. He ended up leading the Giants in receptions in 2008, despite being 3rd on the depth chart behind Plexico Burress and Amani Toomer. But the production from those catches didn't really stand out. It was in 2009 when Plexico Burress and Amani Toomer left in free agency that Smith ended up being the wide receiver 1 and took full advantage of that situation. He became what was at the time the only Giants receiver to ever get 90-plus catches in a season, which seems crazy, right? It seems like nowadays in the NFL, any star wide receiver getting 100 catches in a season, especially with 17 games, as much as everybody's passing. But at the time, again, this was 2009, at the time, he was the only Giants wide receiver to ever get 90-plus catches in a single season. And those 90-plus catches got him to more than 1,200 yards in a Pro Bowl in that 2009 season. In 2010, Smith signed a deal with the Eagles, but barely played before getting a bone bruise in his knee that ended up requiring season-ending surgery, and then he ended up never playing again and retired in 2013. Next guy we're going to talk about is a guy whose story is real simple. There's a man blessed with a ridiculous combination of size and athleticism, but a body that just couldn't handle his abilities. That's going to be Allen Hearns. High school for Allen Hearns ended with a season-ending injury. In college, he only started 26 to 45 games, a lot of which was due to injury. He ended up being an undrafted free agent, got signed by Jaguars, and ended up becoming the first ever undrafted free agent to start in the season opener in Jaguars history. In his first NFL game, he had 4 catches for 110 and 2 touchdowns. And those 2 touchdowns were his first 2 catches. And doing that, he was joining Charles Rogers as the only receivers in NFL history to ever have their first 2 catches be touchdowns. He finished his first season with 677 yards and 6 touchdowns. His second season is where he broke out, though. He had career highs in receptions with 64 yards, 1,031 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. Double-digit touchdowns is really good. He looked like he was going to be the next great NFL receiver. He ended up signing a $40 million contract with the Jaguars in 2016 offseason, then went on to set career lows in all the same statistics. His best chance to ever be able to regain that former glory was in 2017 when Allen Robinson went down in week 1 with a season-ending injury. But he ended up finishing that season with 46 catches for 576 yards and 2 touchdowns. Overall, inconsistency and injuries have kept Allen Hearns on the back burner, and he'll likely end up never playing in the NFL again. He's currently an NFL free agent, but he's likely never going to be signed to an NFL roster again. And, one of the bigger what-ifs in NFL history. Next guy we're going to get into is Sidney Rice, the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver. Now, Sidney Rice was an exciting prospect, but always had his obvious flaws, right? His first 2 NFL seasons were lackluster, failing to eclipse 400 yards in either season. But the narrative around him started to change in 2009 when the Vikings brought in Brett Favre to be the quarterback. During that 2009 season, Rice stepped up as one of the best playmakers on the team, maybe the best playmaker on the team. In a year where the Vikings made a push in the playoffs and were one of the best teams in the NFL, Sidney Rice ended up with 83 catches, 1,312 yards, and 8 touchdowns on his way to making a Pro Bowl. That is, compared to some the other guys on this list, that is quite the season for a guy that hadn't been able to get over 400 yards before. I think what Sidney Rice showed in this 2009 season is just how important it is for a quarterback to have a receiver and for a receiver to have a quarterback. The pairing of the two is so important. And what he was able to do in 2019, again, Pro Bowl season, could have been an all-pro if there weren't absolute freaks in the league at that time. But then you look at the rest of his career, he never caught any more than 50 passes ever again. And he retired from the NFL in 2014, and we never heard from him ever again. And the last receiver on this list is going to be Michael Clayton, maybe a lesser-known wide receiver, but a guy that was drafted by the Buccaneers in 2004. This is truly one of the bigger what-ifs in NFL history. A guy that was selected 15th overall. You look at his rookie year. He led all NFL rookies and the Bucs with 80 catches, 1,193 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Did that as a rookie. So all signs pointed to Clayton being the next big thing at wide receiver in the NFL. Then you go to his second season. Unfortunately, injuries and off-field issues led to Clayton having an extremely disappointing second season in the NFL. Then you hope for a bounce-back season in 2006, but his 2006 season was very average, and then he got placed on IR with 4 games remaining in 2007 and wasn't really making an impact up to that point. He ended up signing a 5-year contract with the Bucs in 2008, but never really did anything and was released in 2010. He was on and off the Giants roster in 2010 and 2011. I believe he even got a Super Bowl ring with them, but after that Super Bowl run with the Giants, never played in the NFL again. And that's going to do it for this list of wide receiver one-hit wonders. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any one-hit wonders we should cover in the future down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and keep coming back for more off-season content. And we'll see you for the next video.